Welcome to the Terrible Podcast with your hosts from SteelersDepot.com, where you can find all your latest and greatest Steelers news. It's Dave Bryan and Alex Kozora, always lit, talking Steelers. And now, here's Dave and Alex.
Welcome to the Terrible Podcast, Season 11, Episode 113. He's Dave Bryan. I'm Alex Kozora, SteelersDepot.com. Glad to be back with you guys for this Tuesday. I know it's been exactly 1 week since our last Terrible Podcast with myself and Dave. Dave is back from a well-deserved vacation. Dave, how you doing, and how was your trip to the Grand Canyon?
I'm doing good. I have a little bit of color to me now. Went to Albuquerque and Santa Fe, two places we've yet to be out. You know, believe it or not, it's been 5 years since we moved out to Las Vegas. I think May 12th was the 5-year anniversary, and been meaning to get over to a couple of neighboring states there, and Albuquerque and Santa Fe specifically, and been wanting to get over to the Grand Canyon as well too. We have yet to do that, but we got that in as well too. And thanks to Kevin in Albuquerque, Kevin in ABQ on Twitter, and he obviously lives in Albuquerque. Got a lot of heads up information on what to do and what not to do while there. Stayed at a very, very nice casino midway between Santa Fe and Albuquerque there, which gave us easy access to both of those cities. And I got a lot of walking in during that time. The sun is just as hot there as it is in Vegas, so I got a little bit of nice color. And then the last day, which I guess would have been Sunday, we spent all day at the Grand Canyon and did the tourist things and took the tours and got to see some wildlife. So packed in a lot in a little bit of time. But my home is in front of the computer, and that's where I am as of last night. So ready. I know we got a lot to talk about there, and people could care less about Dave's Mutual of Omaha.
Well, we're glad you had a good vacation, and we're glad you're back home here on the podcast. And you're right, we have a lot to discuss since our last show. Hit on the key points from the last week, of course, starting with the 2021 NFL schedule that got officially released on, last Wednesday. Leaked out throughout the day, became official around 7:45 as premiered on the Steelers YouTube channel. We can kind of run through the schedule here and hit the bullet points. We, of course, knew who the opponents would be. Now it's just a question of the order in which the Steelers would play them, and they will open on the road for the 7th straight season, Week 1 at Buffalo for a Sunday afternoon game.
Yeah, I know the Pirates' schedule probably played a lot into this. Did you watch the how the schedule is made show on, I think it was the NFL Network that ran that? Boy, if anybody listening saw that or obviously you're probably amazed by that. If you haven't seen it yet, you probably want to see that show, because it gives a lot of great in-depth information about how the NFL schedule used to be made, how it's made now, and how there's so much cloud computing and scenarios, and how teams obviously submit. It goes more into just the Steelers really want to play at home in Week 1 for the first time in 7 years, which obviously wasn't the case there. But there's a lot that goes into the actual schedule making and trying to create what the NFL deems the perfect schedule. So if you've yet to see that, man, try to find a copy of that or search your local listings and make sure you set the VCR or the DVR or whatever to record that. So back to Steelers versus Bills in Week 1. Boy, if I was a betting man, I would have bet that the Steelers would have been at home that Monday night against the Cleveland Browns. Obviously, that wasn't the case. What a tough chore that's going to be for the Steelers, right? Opening up on the road against a very good Buffalo Bills team, Bills team that the Steelers have lost 2 in a row the last 2 seasons to. Steelers team with a lot of questions surrounding them entering the 2021 season. So, were there harder? Could there have been a harder start to the season than playing the Buffalo Bills on the road? Yeah, I'm sure you could go through this thing and pick out maybe a tougher game, but this is a tough one, no doubt, and we're going to find out, I think, a lot about the Steelers right out of the chute. They open up 6.5 point road underdogs. I believe that's the largest spread that the Steelers have been an underdog in Week 1, at least under Mike Tomlin as well. So maybe one of those Patriots games on the road was 7 points off. I forgot to look at that or see for sure. But this ranks up right up there. And if quite honestly, Alex, and I'm going to talk about this a little bit later today in my Tuesday terrible take, is the fact that if the Steelers were able to win this Week 1 game against Buffalo, this might go down in history as the best Week 1 coaching job by one Mike Tomlin during his Steelers career, at least to date.
I'll be interested to hear that later today. Yeah, to answer your question, it's a very short list of tougher Week 1 matchups, and this one on the road at Buffalo, a team that, as you mentioned, Dave, has had the Steelers' number in their last 2 meetings, and so that'll be a tough game out of the chute. And despite the frustration from Art Rooney and myself, and probably Steelers Nation as a collective, the lack of a home opener, the Steelers do have 4 of their first 6 games of the season at home, including their next 2. Week 2, a home opener versus Las Vegas Raiders, and then Week 3 hosting the Bengals.
And back to the whole streak of 7 years. Look, is it the death sentence? I don't like the way Peter King downplayed it. Oh, it's not a big deal. Well, if it wasn't a big deal, then you'd probably have more streaks along the way of teams, not opening at home for that length of time. Now, I don't need Peter King telling me what's fair and what's not fair in the NFL, especially based on his voting record on the Pro Football Hall of Fame there. Look, every year's a different year, right? So it's not like, oh man, here we go again. It's not like it's taking a toll on the players year in, year out, opening on the road. Now, I don't know. It'd be interesting to get Ben Roethlisberger's comments on this. How nice would it be? Let's face it, nearly half of Ben Roethlisberger's career has been opening on the road in Week 1. Is there some sort of psychological advantage or something Week 1 of the season that might play into this thing, and obviously the home crowd, and look, a lot of these Steeler fans, let's say they're a teenager right now or a preteen or right around in there. The last time the Steelers opened at home, they were 7. Just put that kind of stuff in perspective. So, is it that big of a deal that the Steelers, will have gone 7 consecutive seasons without opening a regular season at home? I guess the short answer to that's no. But I mean, come on,
Yeah, I describe it as a mild annoyance. I was kind of annoyed by seeing it when the schedule first released, but I've already gotten over it. It's Week 1, it's on the road. You got 4 of the first 6 at home. You got Weeks 2, Week 3 as home games. They'll live. It's all about just winning the game, and that's all that really matters.
Right, and I'm off my soapbox, and it's a soapbox that I've been on, I guess, last almost damn near 7 years now, and all like that. I just. It would be nice to see this team open at home for a couple years in a row moving forward. Let's just put it that way. Now, on to the schedule. Yeah, you're right. 2 of your first 3 are obviously at home. So let's say for some reason you come out of Buffalo and you get the W there. It sets up nicely, to be honest with you, for the Steelers to start the season 3-0. If they're able to get out of Buffalo with a win. If for some reason they do lose in Buffalo, well, at least a perfect opportunity exists to right the ship real quick and before you go back on the road, get 2 wins at home against the Raiders and the Bengals. Who knows what this Raiders team is going to look like? And as far as the Bengals go, I mean, you would think the Steelers are going to be favored in that game, just like they would be against the Raiders as well, too. So two, what I would consider at least, winnable games, you would think, in weeks 2 and week 3 at home against the Raiders and the Bengals.
Agreed. Nothing guaranteed, of course, but I think the Seals would be the favorites against the Raiders and Bengals at home. Week 4, probably, they may or may not be the favorites depending on the quarterback situation in Green Bay, but let's assume Aaron Rodgers remains a Packer for now. They'll travel to Lambeau Field week 4 to play the Packers.
Yeah, the big question there, I guess, at this point is who is going to be the quarterback? So I don't know if that's a question that we're going to get answered for some time. Now, obviously, if the quarterback's Aaron Rodgers, trying to beat Aaron Rodgers and the Packers in Green Bay will be a tough chore. However, trying to beat, let's say, Jordan Love and the Packers in Green Bay, a lot more interesting or feasible situation there when it comes to that. So
I would say Blake Bortles would be too. Remember the 2017 playoff game, and maybe not. We'll
Right. Look, I mean, if for some reason Aaron Rodgers isn't the quarterback for that game for whatever reason, and Jordan Love's not, then why the hell did they draft him? And you could probably set that, confirm that instance was the genesis of all this, right? Maybe with Aaron Rodgers was the drafting of Love in the first round a couple of years ago. So if it isn't Aaron Rodgers, you would expect it to be Jordan Love, and if it isn't Love, then you got to really question what the Packers did a couple of years ago.
Sure, but for the here and now, Aaron Rodgers is still the Packers quarterback, and if he is going to be their quarterback, the Steelers probably go into that game as underdogs.
Oh, yeah, most of it. Do you think how much of this is, if you had to put money on it right now, based on everything that you know out there, Aaron Rodgers is quite the drama factory as well, too, right? I mean, if you're going to call Ben Roethlisberger, drama burger, over the air, like a lot of the fan base has. I mean, Aaron Rodgers has got some level of that to him as well, right? I mean, he likes a lot of this that's going on right now, I bet.
I mean, I'm sure to some extent there's obviously a lot of drama surrounding Aaron Rodgers. How much of it is driven by Aaron Rodgers, though, I'm not quite sure, largely because I can't separate a lot of fact from fiction of all these reports that seem to come out hourly. I just don't know what's true and what's not true.
Right, and that's half the battle with in any situation such as this, right?
For example, if the report is that he wants a GM fired to be true, then obviously that's like full-blown drama. If that's not true, though, then obviously you discount it entirely. And I have no idea if that's accurate or not. It doesn't sound like it's accurate, but obviously I'm not paying a lot of attention, and no one really knows the exact details of the situation.
Right. I mean, the guy is still one of the highest-paid quarterbacks in the league, and I don't know, they thought Brett Favre would never leave Green Bay either, but that obviously happened. And Aaron obviously, taking control of the Jeopardy host and doing a pretty good job as far as I can tell in a few episodes that I've watched so far. But anyway, going to be interesting to play out, and that'll be the main storyline between now and the week. What week is that? Week 4 game against the Packers is who will be the quarterback for Green Bay in that one.
And if it isn't Aaron Rodgers, he could be the quarterback of the Steelers' next opponent, the Denver Broncos, Week 5. That'll be a home game, followed by hosting the Seattle Seahawks for the first primetime game, 1 of 5 for the Steelers in 2020, Sunday night, October 17th.
Yeah, I guess looking ahead, you can say who that's why these things are so hard to predict right out of the chute. People want to say, what's your schedule prediction? And good Lord, things can change from week 1 to week 2, injuries and all like that. Right now on paper, you'd like the Steelers' chances at home against Denver in Week 5, and Sunday afternoon kickoff time as well too. So once again, we'll wait and see who the quarterback will be.
Week 7 will be the Steelers' bye week. Hopefully they get to keep it there this year. And then Week 8 will be their first matchup against Cleveland at the Browns, Sunday, October 31st for 1 p.m. game. So first chance to see the probably AFC North favorite Cleveland Browns.
How would you rank, talking about those first 6 games, how would you rank that on a tough an oh my God scale of 0 to 10, with 10 being oh my God to where would you rank the exact order and opponents of the Steelers on a scale of 1 to 10 as far as toughness?
I'd probably say a 5 overall. I mean, there's obviously some tougher matchups at Buffalo, at Green Bay are the top 2, probably hosting Seattle number 3, and then some quote-unquote easier matchups at home versus the Raiders, Bengals, and Broncos. You can probably put those teams in about any order. I'd probably say the easiest would be maybe the Broncos, just because those AFC North battles versus the Bengals can always be tough, as evident by last season. But I'd probably say 3 tougher games, 3 easier games, so I'll give you a 5.
I would go 7. I would go 7 because Buffalo is obviously tough. I think the Raiders are going to be a challenge. Burrow second season in Cincinnati. Green Bay, obviously, if Aaron Rodgers plays, and then Russell Wilson and Seahawks. Even though you're getting them in your place, that's not going to be an easy chore there. So I would give those first 6 games a 7 out of a 10 on the toughness scale. What's best case? If you came out at 3-3, are you're probably not thrilled, but I mean,
4-2.
4-2.
I'm happy.
4-2. You're happy?
Yeah, I would say 4-2. Again, this is all kind of couching the idea of this is not going to matter by September, 10th. It just doesn't matter at that point, predicting the schedule stuff. But if you come out 4-2 from that first 6 game stretch heading in your bye week, I think that's a decent spot to be in.
All right, those next 5 games after the bye, you get a bye, and you probably need it coming off those first 6 games, and then obviously you go Cleveland at Cleveland. You get a couple home games back to back against NFC North opponents in the Chicago Bears and Detroit Lions, and then at home against the Los Angeles Chargers, and on the road against the Los Angeles Chargers, which some might consider a home game for the Steelers, the way Steelers Nation shows up there, and then the second meeting against the Browns on the road as well too. So give me your thoughts on those 5 games.
Yeah, I guess you would say that's the lighter part of the schedule, maybe the calm before the storm that is that brutal end to it. But again, you don't want to assume anything. Obviously, playing at Cleveland is going to be tough. Going out west to the Chargers is not going to be a gimme. And Justin Herbert, how good was he last year? Will be even better this year, I'm sure. But hosting the Bears and the Lions, not the strongest teams in the AFC North. Hopefully, you can probably come out ahead with what is that 4-1 record there, ideally.
Yeah, with those two divisional games in there, you would think and hope that maybe you can get both of those, even though both those are on the road. Maybe at worst you split those and then get a couple more wins at least. Beat the Bears, beat the Lions. It'd be interesting to see what the Chargers look like there with the second year with Justin Herbert. So not an impossible stretch right there in those 5 games. Let's just put it to you that way. Mm-hmm. How would you rank those 5 games on a scale of 1 to 10? A 5 again or lower?
No, I would put it probably at a 3.
Okay. I would put it about, you do have 2 divisional opponents in there, so I'd probably rank that one about a 5.
Okay, fair enough. And then the last chunk of the schedule is the most difficult of all. This is going to be probably turn the dial to 11 kind of on your scale there, Dave, with Baltimore, Minnesota, Tennessee, Kansas City, Cleveland, and Baltimore. So 5 of your final 6 games against 2020 playoff teams. Your others against Minnesota, who's going to be probably in playoff contention, at Kansas City. You're playing Baltimore twice. They're including the finale, Week 18, at Baltimore. The Browns on Monday night, you got your Thursday night game in there as well. It creates a short week, all that stuff. So that is by far the most difficult portion of the schedule.
Absolutely. Now, obviously, a lot of things can happen in between there, not only to the Steelers, but a few of those other teams as well, too. You have to circle both those games against the Ravens. I think that's the obvious thing when it comes there. Hopefully, when you get into Week 16 and that game against the Chiefs, it's hard to envision that game not meaning a lot one way or the other. In other words, you win it, oh boy, you are set for maybe a nice playoff run. If you lose it, oh my, you probably maybe you have to win your final two games to maybe even get into playoffs, or along those lines. And of course, those last two games being divisional games against the Browns and the Ravens are not easy at all. So most definitely the back end of this schedule, at least the final 6 games. You'd have to, I think, rate as the toughest part of the schedule. And you're right. On the oh my God scale, it might just be an 11.
Yeah, we know this AFC North battle is going to be so close between Baltimore, Cleveland, and Pittsburgh, and it's really going to probably be defined by what happens in the AFC North play. So those last 2 weeks, Week 17 hosting Cleveland and then Week 18 at Baltimore, very well could decide who's going to win the AFC North.
Yeah, absolutely. And once again, look, it's not like this is magical. We've known the opponents for quite a while now. It's something magical, I guess. Happens in the psyche of fans or whatnot when you start putting these things in order. So 5 primetime games, correct? And quite a few 1 o'clock starts, at least to start the season. I know that'll make quite a few fans happy, and the Steelers Depot staff happy as well too. And we'll see as the season goes on if how many of those are flexed and all like that. I mean, I don't know how. Like I said, we've known the Steelers 2021 opponents ever since the 2020 season ended, and really that was it wasn't too long after that we had a pretty good idea that the Seattle Seahawks would be added to that as well there. So I don't know how you get too upset or too down about the actual order overall. Once again, I think it'd be nice if the Steelers opened at home, but I don't know. At least you get the Bills out of the way early. It's not going to be you can't blame it on snow or extremely cold weather, or at least you don't think so at that time of year. And they're going to have their problems probably trying to work out of a little bit shortened preseason or whatnot as well too. So who knows? Maybe you catch them at the right time. So maybe we'll look back at this and say, oh man, it was pretty good that the Steelers caught the Bills in Week 1. But those same type of problems that the Bills could possibly have, the Steelers could have as well. So it definitely works both ways there. So I don't know what we're supposed to do as far as ranking or talking about schedule much more than what we just did.
Yeah, I try not to overreact to the schedule release, either get too high or too low about it, because it's going to become meaningless pretty quickly. When you're in Week 1, you're not thinking about what the Week 12 opponent's going to be or anything like that. You just start taking that thing one week at a time. And again, you knew the opponents, and there is certainly value in seeing the order of things and bye weeks and that brutal end of the schedule, the way it's constructed. I mean, there is still additional value in that. I just try not to get too high or too low about this stuff, because I know it's not going to really matter here once training camp opens and you're just focused on the here and now.
Right, and even before the season, when people ask us to pick the record and all like that, I mean, so much happens during a regular season that changes, your viewpoint ahead of each one of those games. But I still contend, and I think you do as well, just boiling this down to what the 2021 Steelers at least look like on paper right now, and especially now that the draft is over with there. I think it comes down to what we've kind of mentioned. Can the offense take enough steps forward to maybe cover the amount of steps backwards that I think both of us feel that the Steelers defense will take, moving in the wrong direction in 2021. I think that's the biggest question here overall. Look, the offense needed to get better, a lot better than they were last season, especially when it comes to running the football. That was that was the word that Art Rooney II put up the minute the bat signal went up during the offseason there. We kind of expected that stuff to come. The Steelers followed that up with in the draft with the drafting of Najee Harris, obviously, in the first round. First 4 picks offensive side of the ball, a couple offensive linemen in there, got a tight end in there, one that hopefully can block and contribute in the passing game there. So the question, though, is those losses that this team had on the defensive side of football through free agency was enough done, or will enough be done by the time we get to week 1 to say, hey, this defense can at least be almost as good as the defense the team had in 2020.
Yeah, when it comes to the offense and the focal point, there's obviously going to be on the offensive line, and just a complete transformation that's undergone over the last 2 years, but really the last couple months, especially with a new OC, new head offensive line coach, new assistant offensive line coach. Only literally one returning week 1 starter, even though DeCastro didn't start at week 1 last year at right guard, but just overall a pretty new group in general. And so will it be better? Will it be worse? We're not quite sure, but we know it's going to be different. And I think as they go, so will the offense, and so will the answer to your question.
Absolutely. And look, I mean, the best defense that you can have is an offense that drives the field and uses up clock and is able to run successfully overall. I mean, the last year, Keith Butler, I know he gets criticized a lot of things he says, but he's right when he's saying the best defense is one that you don't have to put out on the field.
Mm-hmm. And I know you've gotten your run successfuless mandate already in your first podcast back. So
there
we're
you
glad
go.
To see that.
Boy, you look at and it's really meaningless, but part of what I do revolves a lot of meaningless stuff though. But I like looking back. His run success rate at Alabama, talking about Najee Harris, was like over 65%, I think, there. So man, if you can at the NFL level, 50% or more. And obviously you get it if you're to get into that, 52, 53% run success rate when it comes to a guy like Najee Harris at the NFL level in his rookie season. Only good things can happen when you get to that level there. So I would say the goal for this offense, when it comes to run success rates in his rookie season, has got to be 52%, man. It just has to be. If you don't achieve that, you have to wonder if you approached all this the right way.
Right. Yeah, that should at least be the goal, and we'll see how close they come. So a good marker to have to track throughout the regular season. Should mention as well the preseason schedule that'll open up August 5th versus the Dallas Cowboys, the Hall of Fame game, 8 p.m. in Canton, Ohio, and then at Philadelphia, the one home preseason game versus Detroit, August 21st. And then I do like they are still finishing out their preseason at Carolina on Friday, August 27th.
Yeah, and they get the equivalent of what would normally be a normal preseason, right? Minus the Hall of Fame game. So they get 4 games there. I think quietly that sort of plays a little bit into the Steelers' favor here now, and especially look where you get some time to evaluate some of those young guys on the roster and not wear out your veterans as well too. And some of these, especially some of these younger offensive linemen, specifically center Kendrick Green, he's going to need as many snaps, I think, as he can get during the preseason there. So that gives you 4 there. So it's always nice to see Carolina close out the preseason against them. They do play an interesting thing that it's not that big of a deal overall. They play the Lions during the preseason, and then we'll turn around and play the Lions several weeks later during the regular season. Not that you're going to learn all that much about that either there, but man, things seem to be getting back to some sort of little bit of normal here, right?
Yeah, just a quick side note. Usually before the preseason we kind of talk about who's going to be who's going to have the most snaps in the preseason overall. It might be Kendrick Green, might be the leader in the clubhouse as the most snapped Steeler in the preseason. But yeah, hopefully things getting back to some level of normalcy. Art Rooney talked about that he is hoping and expecting 100% capacity for Heinz Field this year. Some of the stuff from the CDC and some of the stuff from Governor Tom Wolf is going to probably be in line with that. The state of PA is going to be lifting all of its COVID mitigation restrictions aside from masks at the end of May, right after Memorial Day. So that will have everything at full capacity. So hopefully should have Heinz Field at 100%. And Art Rooney said and continues to be optimistic about having training camp at Latrobe.
Boy, it'd be great to have you back out there again, won't it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I missed it very much last year.
You might set up a tent out there, right?
They'll let me. Whatever I got to do.
All right, good news. What else? What else coming out of the schedule and Art Rooney and his post-schedule interview? Anything else hit you there?
That was about it. He did mention they're going to have a color rush game at some point this year. Not determined when that game is going to be, but they will have a color rush game and still have an event and a ceremony for their Hall of Famers and their Hall of Honor guys and all that. But those things have still not been etched in stone yet of when they'll happen.
All right, good stuff.
All right, Dave. So while you were away, the Steelers had their first action on the field, their 3-day rookie minicamp weekend that took place this past Friday through Sunday. 34 players were able to go, so obviously a much smaller roster than usual because of the limitations on trial players, just 5 allowed by the NFL. Of course, we're not going to learn too terribly much about these things, but you get to see the rookies on the field for the first time, get to hear from the rookies, and get to hear from Mike Tomlin. And I thought one of the more striking things that Mike Tomlin said in his interview with local media was talking about Najee Harris. And we always discuss about how this time of year Tomlin preaches conditioning and being in great shape and just, being ready to handle the workload and just, being a professional. And he really praised Najee Harris and said he was as highly conditioned as anyone on the football field for this rookie minicamp weekend. And you just look at the guy and he's just built. I mean, he's just cut and muscular and just doesn't seem to be really any fat on this guy. So I think he's in really good NFL-ready shape.
Boy, you can name one of his calves Alex Kozora, couldn't you?
Probably weighs more than me. I mean, this dude is freaky looking. I mean that in the best possible way.
I don't know how to respond to that other than saying he better be.
That's true. Yeah.
So I mean, look, you spend a first-round draft pick on a running back, one that's expected to be your bell cow. Everything that goes along with that, look, every first-round draft pick, or really every draft pick overall, you would think, okay, best shape of his life type of talk there. When it comes to a guy like this specifically, it better be best shape of your life. And he looks at. I'll tell you this: you look at the photos that came out of that rookie minicamp and the videos and everything about him, and obviously everything that we know coming out of during his time at Alabama. He certainly looks the part. I mean, he certainly looks the part. He really does look like he's in great shape. And, one of the biggest fears when it comes to specifically the running back position is the wear and tear that it takes on those guys. And not only with any draft pick coming from college to the pro level, but, you worry about kind of, the overall conditioning and the rigors of training camp and everything that goes along with that. You remember there was a lot of excitement back in, 2013 when they drafted this kid named Le'Veon Bell coming out of Michigan State in the second round there. And it was kind of this same kind of talk. Was it not Alex Kozora? And really, I think kind of Rashard Mendenhall several years before that as well, too. But specifically about Le'Veon Bell is, oh, boy, can catch the ball out of the backfield, pass protection, can handle those handle the workloads that come along with that. Remember what happened the first 3 games of that 2013 season, Alex?
He didn't play, right?
He was inactive for 3 games for, I think, what was a foot injury or something along those lines there. So here's the thing about that I don't think a lot of people probably don't remember right now. When it comes to Le'Veon Bell in his rookie season, he ran the football 244 times in 13 total games, and he also had 45 receptions. So we're talking, 200 and almost
89.
Yeah, almost 290 touches of the football in 13 games overall. And if you just saw the 289 and did not know the rest of it, you think, man, that's quite a bit of touches, right? Imagine what would have happened had Le'Veon Bell been healthy for those first 3 games. How many touches he would have had? I mean, we're talking well over 3. We're talking probably 320 neighborhood right there. Because of that, because of the NFL now moving to a 17-game season, allow for maybe, I don't know, maybe a missed game in there, knock on wood, hopefully I'm wrong, but is there any reason to think right now from where we sit that Najee Harris won't touch the football at least, 310 times as a rookie? Is that too much?
No, when you frame it like that, and I wrote about that one of my articles over the weekend, I mean, that could be a realistic number for him to reach in terms of total touches. I'm kind of projecting an 1,100-yard carry or 1,100-yard rushing, how many carries that is, 200 plus in a 50 reception type season for another 500 or so yards. So, yeah, I think he's released right around the 300 touch range, provided he's able to stay healthy for the majority of the season.
Right, and if he doesn't, then all the people like me are going to say, "See, I told you, you should have drafted." No, look, I'm obviously not down on the kid. I think he's fantastic. I enjoy breaking down his film, but there's still going to be, until he gets past the first couple of years, with minimal missed time due to injury. To me, that's the biggest aspect of this. You're dealing with a position that doesn't have a great track record of playing more than, I forget what the number I have, more than, let's say, 80% of the games over the course of like first 2 or 3 seasons there. That's chore number one. If he can stay on the field for, let's see, we're 17 game season now, 34. If he can stay on the field for, let's say, more than 30 games of the first two seasons, then I think that's a huge hurdle that he's gotten past. And I would expect the stats to be there, and the high success rate, because obviously if it's not, you've done something's wrong. Either your offensive line is just beyond pitiful, or maybe you got the wrong back, But I mean, this is a guy that I think, once again, going back to Mike Tomlin and his philosophy and bell cow, and the fact that the team's got a first round draft pick in Najee Harris, and just looks ready, right? Looks. You unwrap the present, it's ready to play with, right? I mean, so if you get 300, let's say you got 310 touches out of him, what's a good average yards per touch with him? 4.2, 4.3. You expect
a little bit
more?
Higher than that per touch or per carry?
Per touch.
Per touch, maybe a little bit higher than that. I think per carry, if he can be around 4.1, 4.2 is kind of where I want him to be at least.
All right, so what are you thinking per touch? 4.5, 4.6?
Yeah, somewhere around there, I guess. I haven't done the math of per touch, but somewhere around there, I suppose.
All right, so let's take 310 and times it by, I don't want to put too much pressure on him. 4.6?
Sure, 4.6 is fine.
All right, that's 1,426 yards from scrimmage.
Yeah, I think a wholly attainable number, not only just because of his skill set, but because of the way the Steelers are using him. I mean, he talked about how his usage so far in rookie minicamp, just 3 days, obviously. There are no veterans there, et cetera, but his usage in the NFL has been very similar to his time in Alabama. He said, quote, "A lot of things that are similar is how they're going to line me up wide. I utilize the running back in the passing game out wide, the slot, the X position. I know there was a lot of fervor on Twitter about hearing him playing the X, but that's just something that he did in college. He did with Le'Veon Bell, and it's not necessarily that they're going to play him exclusively at the X, but just the idea of let's move him away, let's split him out wide, get him away from the line of scrimmage, and just utilize his receiving ability. So I wouldn't make more about that comment than it is, just saying he was a versatile guy at Alabama, and we're going to take advantage of that versatility in the NFL.
Well, here's the thing, too, about it is, that's one more identifier that you can use as well, too, that they probably haven't used enough these last couple of years, is what happens, how do opposing defenses react when you move the running back out. It's an easy identifier for a quarterback. Not that Ben Roethlisberger needs super easy identifiers, but and look, I mean, when you look just on a one-on-one basis, will the threat, if you show that threat early and use it early, it might make a lot of difference in some of the personnel groupings that you see on the field, which in turn could help the running game on top of it.
Yeah, sure. In terms of the identifier, if you have a linebacker out there, then you're probably getting a zone indication. If you have a corner or a man indication, I should say, if you have a cornerback or a DB out there, you're probably getting more of a zone look there. That can be a good way to use. And they use empty a lot, so that's nothing new. Hopefully, it can just be more effective when you have a really talented, running back who can catch the ball and run routes the way that Najee Harris can.
And once again, if you use that early and burn a linebacker or two, maybe it's some one-on-one situations by throwing to Najee either out of the backfield or lined up in the slot and all like that too. Once again, maybe that changes the situation in certain personnel groupings, maybe, and you get a smaller. What you would deem a smaller grouping on the offensive side of the football, and then you damn sure better be able to run well against smaller defensive groupings, right?
Yeah, because you could be in a still heavier look, or at least your base 11 personnel, but then go empty, and the defense might be a nickel and have to walk the linebacker out, and how do they have to handle that if they keep getting burned by it? That's a really good question. So, again, the way that the Steelers have struggled against heavy personnel, 12, 13 personnel, when they are forced to stay in base and they get linebackers matched up on receivers and all that fun stuff, maybe you can kind of give opposing defenses a taste of their own medicine.
All right. I mean, did Najee say much of anything that surprised you?
No, nothing that surprised me. You just kind of feel his personality. I remember that first presser when he first got drafted felt a little awkward, kind of the bright lights of it, but he seemed more comfortable and was joking around with the media, and I think it's going to be a really good quote, and, made the funny comment about, I thought the media guys were boosters and stuff like that, and so, I think he'll be, someone that's pretty honest and gives some really interesting answers, and that's always, I think, refreshing.
He's a very mature guy, and obviously his age already and all like that. I mean, and coming out of a program such as Alabama, where you would think most of them come out of there pretty polished. I mean, Alabama obviously one of the largest, if not largest, profile college programs going right now. Nick Saban knows how to, those that put the work into it, has a good track record of having some of these guys NFL ready and all. So, large, obviously, media contingent that he's already dealt with at Alabama, should transition okay, although a lot of venom, obviously, with some of the Pittsburgh media, but he'll learn to brush that off just as quick, I'm pretty sure, as well there. But very entertaining, those couple of media sessions that he's done so far.
Absolutely. So, in terms of other information, I mean, Pat Freiermuth talked about, him liking Matt Canada's offense and the motion aspect of it. We're hearing a lot of stuff about, from Juju and from Freiermuth and some other guys about the use of motion and pre-snap motion in the Steelers offense. Again, no surprise there. That's kind of a hallmark of what Canada has done as OC at the college level, and something I'm sure he's going to use as much as possible with the Steelers.
Yeah, we talked about that last year though too, and right out of show, it didn't stick. A lot of the mud didn't stick to the wall, Mm-hmm. It's going to be interesting to see overall. Yeah, look, nothing new here. Just the characters of the play have changed a little bit there. Now, I think, didn't Freiermuth say that he didn't, obviously he wasn't asked to do that as much, I don't think, sure. At Penn State there, but running some of that split zone and all like that, it kind of helps to, and obviously counters as well too. I expect to see it out of shoot again. This year, when it could just how much are they? I want to see them start being able to work more passes out of that. You're not obviously going to use that a lot in the passing game overall, but anything more than what they did last year would be a welcome sight in my opinion. Run that damn wheel route out of it with Najee or something like that. Those sort of things that I'm looking for, and to hear Pat Freiermuth talk as well too. We're gonna see him on the field quite a bit, at least that's kind of the takeaway that I got. So that means some 12 personnel, a little bit more 12 personnel, which I'm a big fan of if you got the right tight ends on the field there doing it. But you obviously got a higher draft pick invested in Pat Freiermuth. I think you got to try to get him on the field as much as possible.
Yeah, I mean, I think obviously he's the number 2 tight end right now. So whenever you go 12 personnel, presumably he'll be the second tight end out there. I don't know if you're going to see immediately an increase of it compared to last year when you have talented receivers that you've also drafted really high. I mean, your base offense is 11 personnel, and you got 3 and 4 really talented receivers that you spent, second, third round draft picks on. So you got to get those guys on the field as well. But certainly when you go 12, as it stands today, at least Pat Freiermuth should be that guy.
James Washington, I wouldn't draft James Washington, I don't think, in your fantasy leagues, at least unless you got him last round or something along those lines there, because it's going to be, if things go right, then you're going to see a lot of 2 wide receivers on the field, I think.
I mean, how much of a percentage difference do you think it's going to be compared to last year? Because I don't really see it necessarily.
Well, once again, I think it goes if things go right, because the later you get into games, you should. I would think that the goal would be to run a lot of more heavier personnel. Even if that means 1 tight end, 1 fullback, in Derek Watt, right? One thing we haven't seen in years is the Steelers put away teams, in a fourth quarter by running the snot out of the football.
Right.
Right? I mean, it's always been, oh, Lord, fourth quarter's here. Roethlisberger's going to throw 20 times, So I think, obviously, I caption that by saying if things go right. So
sure.
Obviously, if things go wrong and you're in a lot of close games, then you're going to see a lot of 11 out there in the fourth quarter. So I think the biggest thing to look at moving forward here to kind of frame all this is how much 11 versus 12 are we going to see in the fourth quarter of games? That's the difference maker right there. That's the one that can change the percentages.
But that's also just dictated by game circumstance, obviously, too. And just, as you said, whether you're up or you're down, or if it's a close game or something like that. So I'd be interested in taking the circumstance out of it, just in the first 3 quarters, for example. Will there be a difference in percentages? I don't think there'll be a dramatic change, a couple percent, obviously, the variance each year. But we'll see. I do wonder, just thinking out loud, Dave, I wonder in 11 personnel, will there be times that Freiermuth comes in as the tight end over Ebron because of the better run blocking capabilities? I wonder if that happens occasionally, where they just want Freiermuth out there because you can have a more diversified run game if he's in there, and Ebron doesn't have to be so schemed around the way that you have to whenever he's in the game.
I would hope that's the goal, right? As the season rolls on. I mean, less Ebron, more Freiermuth in 11. I mean, I would hope that that's the goal. Now, are you going to see that heavy of usage like that right out of the chute? Probably not. But I think by the time you got to past the bye week, you got a second round pick in this guy, and you're happy with his blocking, and you think he's a guy that can help you. Look, he's not, minus the drops. He's not going to be able to separate. He's not going to be the same level a dynamic player that I think Ebron gives you. But have the Steelers maximized the dynamics of Ebron to this point anyway? And the answer is no, right? So
sure, but it's a new OC, so everything's out the window in terms of what's happened in the past.
Right. But even so, then Ebron, like it or not, Ebron's going to have a percentage of drops in there. It's just the way it is. I mean, you track the stuff going way back, guys with drops in college versus drops in the Tiger usually doesn't change his. Well, I guess it'd be stripes in this situation, not spots. But the stripes don't often come off. You know what I'm saying? And and the same goes with Ebron and his blocking as well too. It's foolish to think, oh well, another year, he'll be a better blocker in 2021. No. And here's to us hopefully not finding out that much against a base end, right? That's why you have Freiermuth. That's why you draft him early. So, set the first 6 games of the season, you get a lot of mulligans in there, I think, when it comes to some of the youth on the roster there. But past then, to your point on 11 personnel and seeing Freiermuth a little bit in there more, to prevent opposing defenses to maybe scheme around that, hell yeah, I'm all for it.
And obviously the bottom line, it just comes down to Freiermuth's own play and development. The more he the better he plays, the more he'll warrant playing time, and you kind of have that snowball effect. And so we'll see, as I've cautioned before, you're talking about a true junior tight end who played 4 games this past season, had a shoulder injury, missed a lot of time. That's a tough transition for a tight end to make regardless of their college resume. And for a guy who has not played a ton of football, especially recently, we'll see how steep a learning curve there is. Now, he played in kind of more NFL style role as an inline guy, as someone who had his hand in the dirt. So maybe that lessens the learning curve some, but there is still quite a transition there from college to pro, and we'll see how Freiermuth kind of tackles it.
Look, ever since Dick LeBeau has exited the building, especially on the defensive side of the ball, now we've seen over the years guys on the offensive side of the ball really get put in right away, especially on the higher draft picks. Boy, you go back to what? DeCastro, Pouncey, help me out here, Le'Veon Bell, Heath Miller. I mean, that's maybe going back a little bit too far, but Rashard Mendenhall. Give me some more. Juju Smith-Schuster.
Dupree.
I'm talking off.
Talking offense.
Yeah, I'm talking offense, man. Obviously, look, since Dick LeBeau left the building, we're seeing the defensive guys get on the field more. But really, throughout, even when Dick LeBeau was in Pittsburgh, we still saw the offense brought along a lot quicker, right? The higher draft picks.
Yeah, really. Right after it was after Stephon Tuitt, after his rookie year, because they played him behind. Who'd they play Tuitt behind? His first year. I forget the name, but right after that, they kind of realized, okay, we need to get those guys on the field right away because they are the more talented players. And we have to kind of get rid of this antiquated idea of, Cam Hayward sat for basically his first 2 seasons. And you kind of, had good guys in front of him, obviously, but you want to get that talent on the field right away. So right after kind of that Hayward, Tuitt draft picks happened, that's when you kind of had the change, defense and offense of getting those guys on the field right away.
Yeah, but I mean, offense for the most part, that's pretty well been the thing for at least under Tomlin's career, right?
Of getting those guys on the field right away.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, well, they haven't drafted a lot of offense recently, so there's just I guess less of a sample size in terms of first round draft picks. But
I'm talking first and second round draft. Obviously, there hasn't been that many offensive first round draft picks, but in general, when you look at first 2 round guys, I mean that includes obviously Juju, that includes guys like Chase Claypool. I guess what I'm getting at here is the expectation should be, if you've done this right, to get both of these guys, talking about Najee Harris and Pat Freiermuth, and especially with the position, with kind of the questions, the positions both play. If you're going to draft a tight end in the first 2 rounds, he better be an all-around tight end. Is my view on it, right? I mean, he ought to be a guy
super dynamic. He's either got to be one of those two.
Right. He better be Pitts, right?
Right.
Or he better be if he's not Pitts, he better be I don't want to say George Kittle. That's quite quite. But
that's the bingo.
Right. But he better be up there. When it comes to his all around game there. So I think this is going to be the 2021 season is going to be one that lets us know how the Steelers are when it comes to evaluating offensive skill position players that can come in and the what I'm getting at is the expectations should be high. And they didn't address the offensive line first. They addressed running back first. Okay, because you did that, then that means that you have a lot of confidence that what you ended up doing with the offensive line, via the draft, B via change, newer personnel, experience, but newer personnel, and guys like Zach Banner and Chukwuma Okorafor, and obviously throwing in a new center in there via the draft and all. The expectation should be that the Steelers got this right out of the chute, that Harris is the guy that can be the bell cow. And then I guess what I'm doing is I'm boiling this all the way back to Freiermuth, that as the season goes on, we should see him play a role not only in the passing game, which I think it's a little much to expect him to catch 25 to 30 balls, but definitely in the running game we should see the impact there because he was drafted in the first 2 rounds.
Let me ask you an over-under, 34.6 snaps per game for Pat Freiermuth. And I give that very specific number because that was the number of snaps that Vance McDonald averaged in 14 games last season. Does Freiermuth go over or under that mark, 34.6?
Oh, wow. You're talking about a season, though, right?
Yeah, per game, 34.6 snaps per game.
What's that times 17?
588.2.
Man, I'm going to take the over because I just feel like it damn sure better be over.
That's what I'm saying. It feels like that's a lot of snaps. I think I might take the under slightly. I think, again, just given that transition, I think I'm going to go the under a little bit, assuming that there's good health. Obviously,
sure.
last year for the most part, and so if there's an injury that changes it dramatically. But I think I'm going to go the under if everyone's healthy.
I feel like it better be.
I don't know if it has to be.
I feel like it should be. I mean, you look.
He's still playing a lot of snaps, even if I'm taking the under.
I know, but I mean, look what the alternative is. Apology, Eric Ebron fans. I mean,
it's not that. It's Juju or Claypool or Deontay Johnson versus Pat Freiermuth because you're putting Freiermuth on the field. You're taking one of those guys off, at least if you're going to be in 12 personnel.
Sure, but the collective. This goes back to once again. You did what you did during the offseason to make the offense better, particularly the running game. You better see the fruits of your labor if you did it right. And then that means running more. In my opinion, that means, do I think they're going to run the football 45 times a game on average? No, but you better see some better offensive control of the clock. You better get a testament to it all. The things that you did right offensively should be that you're in the fourth quarter of some games, you're leaning heavily on that running game and doing so successfully on top of it to put away a few of these teams here. So I think, the expectation should be there is no mulligan here. You got it right or you got it wrong with your first 2 picks being Najee Harris and Pat Freiermuth here. And the byproduct, I think, of doing it right is like I said, guys like Freiermuth playing more as the season goes on and playing more than the 50% of total offensive snaps by the time the smoke clears.
Yeah, we'll see. Obviously, there's a lot of different ways this run game needs to improve, not only with its tight end blocking, but just offensive line blocking, scheme, communication, running back creating, et cetera, et cetera. And so we'll see. But I think that'll be one of the interesting numbers I'll be tracking is just kind of that benchmark compared to where Vance was at last year.
I mean, what happens if both these guys stay? I'll talk about both the tight ends here, Ebron and Freiermuth. Both of them stay healthy throughout the season there, and Freiermuth logs, I don't know, 420 total snaps. All right. That probably, to me, that signals that maybe things didn't go the way that you probably wanted them to go offensively.
From the standpoint of the game circumstance side of things, perhaps, but you have to their base is still going to be 11 personnel. You could still need to run effectively out of 11 personnel. So you could still even get a 4-minute situation and still running under those situations and personnel groupings, and you still need to do that successfully. So I don't know if you have to say that just because you have to run the ball out of 12 personnel to run successfully.
All right. Well, here, and I've stated all along, and especially last year, how a team runs out of 11 personnel. There were times where the Steelers just had to do a better job out of running out of 11 last season. They didn't do it.
Mm-hmm.
Really, last
out of
2.
Any grouping, they didn't run well.
12, right. 11. I mean, they didn't run. Period. But I mean, if you want to find a difference between some of the better offensive teams versus not, those that, sometimes the difference maker is how they run out of 11.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And obviously, this run game struggled for many more reasons than the lack of blocking of Eric Ebron. It was poor, but it was not solely on him. It was so many issues last year. So we'll see. It'll be interesting. And hopefully Freiermuth can just overcome that learning curve, just because I know it's really, really tough adjustment for any tight end, especially one who is, again, a true junior. That is just a big jump to make.
Well, and once again, I'm going to end on this. You spend a first-round draft pick on a running back. You spend a second-round draft pick on a tight end on the heels of losing an all-pro center. Having the change that you've had on, and look, obviously not all the change on the offensive line is necessarily a bad thing, right? You're going to see more of Kevin Dotson, a guy that that I think we all agree should be a fairly damn decent guard at the NFL level. You give David DeCastro whatever level of mulligan that you want for 2020. Keep your fingers crossed that was just that. Man, what an oddity for whatever reason, scheme, whatever, David DeCastro should be expected to bounce back in 2021. You get a guy in what looked to be a decent, at least a decent run blocker in Zach Banner after 2/3 of a game last season that you got to see. And then you look on the other side, you really don't know what you're going to get with a core four over there. I guess what I'm getting at here is the bar, the expectation should be high, Alex, because you did not spend a first or second round draft pick on an offensive lineman. As you're going to have the old chicken and the egg. Which should you have addressed first? The offensive line or the running back position when it comes to making this running game better. And then not only that, you doubled down in the second round and chose to put off the offensive line again by selecting what many feel is the best all around tight end in this draft class. Maybe other than Tommy Trimble, at least a more experienced, especially when it comes to passing game and all like that. And with the idea that you already, it certainly feels like a preconceived Kevin Colbert pulling out the 25 names out of his back pocket.
Mm-hmm. Right.
That Kendrick Green was going to be there and that was going to be the guy. I mean, it really does feel like those first three picks to the least were guys that Kevin Colbert had on that list of really top three. Does it not feel that way?
Oh yeah. I mean, we knew they loved Harris. Their interest in Freiermuth was obvious, and Kendrick Green, I guess, a little less so. But when looking back on these things, it's easy to do and kind of to game plan that out. So yeah, I'll agree wholeheartedly.
I mean, and I say that kind of tongue in cheek, right? But I mean, but I really have felt this for quite a while, and I can't wait. Maybe I live long enough to get Kevin Colbert on a podcast to ask him. I mean, come on, Kevin, tell us, is it essentially like 25 guys that you're hoping to come out of the draft with? Because it certainly, especially at the top of drafts going back through time, it certainly has felt that way. And then anyway, I'm going to leave it at this, Alex. With the way the top end, the top three picks of this draft went, and not judging this class anymore past that, and I'm a firm believer in that anyway, because I think what you get kind of after that is what you kind of get at that point. Anything's gravy at that point. They damn sure not only should they better have hit on all three of these, we need to see them hit in their rookie season as well too. And Freiermuth is going to play, but my point of contention is that even if he only, quote unquote, only plays 500 snaps, about 29 snaps per game, that is not necessarily a failure of the evaluation of Pat Freiermuth. That's still a lot of playing time. No, but anything less than that should be.
Well, I'm saying it's going to be about what Vance had last year in terms of 12 personnel. I don't see that number changing too dramatically, game circumstance aside, in terms of what their personnel choosing is going to be.
Well, I could see that number actually, obviously starting a little bit low and then trending more heavier as the season goes on, because you're not going to be able to run with you're going to have to run away from Eric Ebron quite a bit when he is on the field. Now, the hope is that you show enough of that stuff, that you run well enough out of that 12 early in the season that it helps you pass out of it middle part of the season, which in turns help you run even better out of it later on in the season. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, and there's a million ways you can scheme around Ebron. They need to walk him out more, not have him be the inline guy.
Sure.
Because then that just says you can't run to that side. You walk him out, you displace another defender, and now you can kind of feel like you can run to either side, and Ebron can kind of just get in the way on the edge. That's got to be his role. You just got to be smart about, because when he has leverage and angles, I mean, he's a big guy with length. I mean, he can just kind of get in the way. He downblocked J.J. Watt on a snap last season. So if you use him, appropriately and don't put him in situations where he's going to lose base blocking ends and stuff, I mean, it can work, but you just got to be smart about, I think, how they use him as a run blocker.
Right, and I hate to go back to what Bill Belichick says, rules about tight ends and all like that. You got to know their limitations and ask them to only do so much when blocking down, and more than anything, get in the way.
Right. I kind of feel like that's BS from Belichick, though, because he loved Kyle Brady, who was a great blocker. He loved Gronkowski, who was one of the best blocking tight ends. So I feel like that's something Belichick said. It was just actually, I want really good blocking tight ends.
Okay. Well, we'll see, because you got he added a couple more to the collection this offseason.
Yeah. He really did with who's that, Hunter Henry and Jonnu Smith. So, and I think Alfredo Roberts actually compared Pat Freiermuth to Hunter Henry. So interesting comp there. So that is good discussion on Freiermuth in terms of other things that happened at rookie minicamp.
We talked a lot about two guys. I guess we got the rest of the class to talk about there.
Yeah, well, I think it's less so to talk about from the other guys. Not everyone spoke either. We didn't get to hear from Dan Ward Jr. or Buddy Johnson, but Trey Norwood said that he's kind of doing a little bit of everything right now. He says he primarily in college, played more nickel corner and safety this past year, probably played more corner early in his time at Oklahoma. I think will probably be more of a free safety for Pittsburgh to start, but that versatility hopefully will give him an edge in terms of increasing his value to the team.
Yeah, and I just don't know how much confidence I have in really any of these defensive players that the Steelers drafted coming in right away and contributing heavily.
Mm-hmm. Well, there's less holes still overall defensively to the more holes on offense where guys have to play right away as compared to defense. But for Norwood, just in terms of him making the roster, obviously the path there is going to come partially and primarily through special teams, but he can wear multiple hats. Sometimes that works against you because sometimes if you're learning, two spots, it kind of slows development, but at least he was a versatile guy in college, and so it's not something new he'll be asked to do in the NFL.
I think when you look back at a guy like Cameron Sutton, as much praise as he got after being drafted, and we've all heard the stories about him being able to diagram it. When Kevin Colbert and Mike Tomlin went to go see him and all, and how he was able to diagram where every player was supposed to be on defense and all like that. I mean, to me, that's the ceiling expectations. Or that's the bar right now when it comes to any kind of, especially defensive back that you draft when it comes to the Steelers. I think it's hard to expect Trey Norwood to be that kind of guy. And look, even that didn't equate to Cameron Sutton seeing the field much right out of the chute, right? Now he did battle, I think, what do you have, a hamstring or something like that? Kind of out of shoot, but not that would have mattered overall there. The biggest thing when it comes to the 2021 Steelers and the class overall is, man, did they throw enough mud up in there to get somebody to come out of that group that could help with the loss of Mike Hilton?
Right, and we'll see if one of those undrafted free agents can make some noise, whether that's a Shakur Brown or Lamont Wade or Steiner or Mark Gilbert, someone like that. But they definitely threw a lot of mud in the post-draft process.
I mean, it's fun to think about. It seems like we do it every year. We did it last year with Antoine Brooks Jr., right? Kind of a very versatile chess piece, if you will. But to expect that's going to usually take at least a season and a half, I would think. But if you could get a guy, I don't know, maybe you mix and match some of these guys, and it really sounds like we got a lot of mix and matching headed our way with the Pierres and maybe a Norwood, maybe a Shakur Brown. I don't know, but that's one of the things that makes you really wonder about this defense. And I think one of the main reasons why you and I both think that there's some level of expectation that this defense won't be as good as the 2020 defense. And a lot of it has to do with the play in sub package, and specifically maybe at the nickel spot.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, will they be as versatile? Will they have the ability to have answers to any and all situations? Last year they were 6 deep at defensive back. Cam Sutton being that dime defender, what a great spot that was. I mean, that just gave you answers to every single situation. Now there's a lot more unknown. I think you're right. I made that point in my mini dorky solo edition of the Table Podcast on Friday, that it's probably not going to be one man replacing that versatile chess piece. It's probably going to be multiple guys trying to do that, and also Arthur Millette, who the Steelers signed, a veteran guy that has that versatility, so maybe he can be in the mix as well. At least I expect him to be in that mix, and so I think you just take all those guys in the camp and hope that of that 5 or 6 names, 1 or 2 kind of shine and feel like they can help you out on defense.
And because of that, because of the mix and match, and there's and there being some youth and newness involved in that, you got to expect there to be the age-old communication, issues, and
Heath Butler's going to be talking about that week.
Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah, it's going to be the new. It's going to be the new Mike Tomlin free bingo space, or hopefully it's not. But that kind of stuff happens, unfortunately. And especially when you have you got all the plates spinning on the rods all at the one time, moving pretty good last season. Now all of a sudden, you changing a few of those plates out there, and they're not as worn in. It makes it kind of hard to consistently spin all those plates in unison all the time.
You ran well with that analogy. Kudos to you for that one. Yeah, no, I think that's a great point.
I feel fresh. You ready to go another 2.5 hours today?
Oh my goodness!
I've been feeling good. I've been feeling a lot better lately.
Yeah, well, you were outside this weekend. I was not. But yeah, so anything else from Rookie Minicamp? I know you didn't get to see everything as it happened in real time, but just kind of going back through the site and through notes, any other quotes from these guys that kind of stuck out to you?
No, catch me up on Quincy Roche, on maybe some of the key things that maybe he said, and Loudermilk as well.
Sure. Yeah, Roche talked about, improving his run defense, and that's something he's going to work on, and probably one of the biggest, just broadly speaking, areas that he needs to try to improve on as a rookie. Talked about versatility. Someone asked him if it would be a tough adjustment for him to play an outside linebacker role, but if you watched his tape, and he said this as well in his answer, that he stood up a lot at Temple in Miami. He moved around, he played with his hand up, and he dropped a little bit in the coverage, so that's not going to be too big of a transition for him. He talked about trying to convert his family of Ravens fans into Steelers fans, which I don't know how successful that will be, but hopefully he'll have a good rookie year.
Yeah, look, I mean, they I don't know if he's going to be number 3 by the start of the season or not, but I mean, if he is, I think they could have done worse, when it comes to drafting a guy, especially after the 4th or 5th round. I still think that there's that a couple years from now, maybe we're talking about, boy, what a damn steal they got in Quincy Roche, and it's one of those guys that height, because of the measurables overall is probably one of the main reasons, and because you look at prototypical 4-3 defensive ends as being more of those 6'4", 6'5" guys, 270 right around in there. He because of the scheme mostly and his measurables is what allowed him to kind of fall through the cracks, I think. And time will tell. Obviously, you hope this Quincy Roche comes in right away and gives you 4 to 5 special teams tackles during his rookie season. Is able to play most of the core units and then builds on it from there. Gives you 8, 9, 10 snaps a game in relief of T.J. Watt and Alex Highsmith without there being a drop in play. Those are kind of where the expectations, I think, start, at least right now. We'll see if this team adds another outside linebacker at some point between now and the start of regular season. But that's where I'm at on him. And as far as Loudermilk goes, boy, hopefully you don't have to see him at all, right, during his rookie season.
Yeah, the key for Roche is run defense. Since the Steelers moved to a 3-4, there has never been a Steelers, successful starting outside linebacker who's been bad against the run, who's just been a pure pass rusher type. It just does not exist. You cannot really find that guy. They've always had the ability to set the edge and play the run. And so even if Roche is successful as a pass rusher, if he can't set that edge and be physical against the run. It's not going to work in Pittsburgh. So that is the number one thing for him, is to be a good run defender.
Right.
Speaking of potentially adding edge help, and by the way, Loudermilk talked about playing up and down the line. He could be used as a 0 tech to a 5 tech, so that's kind of in line to what the Steelers had said. But going back to edge here, report from Adam Schefter, Ryan Kerrigan, the former Washington edge and defensive lineman, signed with the Philadelphia Eagles yesterday, a 1-year contract worth up to $3.5 million per year. But Adam Schefter said the Steelers were one of the 3 teams interested in potentially signing Kerrigan. I assume it was one of those Kevin Colbert specials, minimum salary benefit type deals that Kerrigan certainly turned his nose at. But interesting to see Kerrigan linked to Pittsburgh, and maybe speaks to some level of recognition his team needs to do more to add help at outside linebacker.
Yeah, to hear the name come across the wire yesterday wasn't, I don't think, a huge shock to me.
The age was the big thing.
Right.
They never go after guys that old.
Right.
Defensively, at least.
But if they do, it's those minimum contracts or one of those 2-year contracts where it makes the first season cap hit next to nothing, which is about really all the Steelers can afford right now on that. But I wasn't blown away. I wasn't even on one of your wish list or earlier this offseason, maybe a potential guy or.
Yeah, he wasn't on the wish list. I had mentioned his name because I think he's been a really strong player and consistent and has good size and plays to run well and all that. But it just was the age for me. He's, 32, 33? I just kind of felt like, okay, that's just not going to happen. And so obviously it didn't happen. But, yeah, that's a guy that I thought would have fit well, and I would have welcomed that if had he signed him with Pittsburgh.
And we don't know what was the interest. Hey, are you
right.
are you hey, this is Kevin Colbert. Click. We don't know how far it's fun to talk about and all. And look, I think one of and I think I had a terrible take about this or before I left town there. It's and I'll write about it soon as well too. It's not going to be it should be expected the Steelers add 1 or 2 guys to this roster between now and the start of the regular season, and potentially one or two. The expectation should be that makes the 53-man roster in week 1 as well too.
We've already started that. Who came right after we talked about that.
Right. So there's one of those guys, potentially one of those guys right there. You would think that if there is another guy, it's going to be an outside linebacker type, or it's going to be a slot corner, I think,
or tight end.
Right, or a guy like Jesse James. I mean, there's not too many positions that it could potentially be there. So I wasn't shocked. I'm a Kerrigan fan. Been interesting to see what he could offer first half of this season, at the very least at a minimal price. But there was no way the Steelers were going to be able to get to that up to 3 point whatever million that he got from the Eagles.
Yeah, and I know that he's been more of a hand-down kind of guy, but in Pittsburgh, I mean, they're not dropping those guys in the coverage much anymore. And
right.
So, it's less than 10% of the time. So it's really kind of becoming more of a function as a defensive end more than it is an outside linebacker. But in terms of other names available for adding edge help, it's pretty limited, at least in terms of guys that are going to be dirt cheap. I think Trent Murphy, who's with Buffalo this past year, is probably the best name on that list, but they honestly may just decide let's take those guys in the camp, Marsh and Roche and the rookies and whoever else may pop up, and then see what happens at cutdowns and add somebody there very late in the process, because the free agency market for edge rushers and pass rush help is just pretty thin right now.
It really is, and even a guy like Melvin Gordon, who we've talked about, right, up there in Ingram. I get my Melvins mixed up. Ingram's up there a little bit in age and coming off injury as well too. So, and not a guy that if you did sign, you would think the ideal guy is somewhere in 27 to 26 to 28. That'll give you a little bit on special teams and all. And I don't know, maybe they think Marsh is that guy, but here's the hope, and that's not the case there. I do think when the dust settles here, when we get to week 1, I think you're going to see another, one of those guys that fit that criteria at outside linebacker.
Yeah, but you think that probably comes more from cutdowns as opposed to signing a street guy right now?
Yeah, or trade, or something.
Trade,
Kevin Colbert will sit in the weeds and wait, I think.
Yeah, I think cutdowns might be the team's best path right now, because we're well past that ideal stage here in mid-May. All right, Dave. I should also mention some Steelers news, although not super eventful with the new CBA. Steelers signed 4 draft picks during the rookie minicamp weekend. Those were the last 4 picks. They were 5th-rounder Isaiah Loudermilk, 6th-rounder Quincy Roche, and 7th-rounders Trey Norwood and Presley Harvin III, the punter from Georgia Tech. So that is 4 of their 9 draft picks already inked to the rookie deals.
Yeah, and not a lot of discussion to go on when it comes to those contracts and offsets. I think the one that could potentially, and it's usually the case, or could be the case, depending on where the Steelers pick and where the line in the sand, how far the line in the sand moves from the previous years. Look, there's not much negotiation overall when it comes to a guy like Najee Harris and his contract. Most of it tends to be around how much of it's fully guaranteed and how much of what the offset language is in that. Now, especially when you're looking at a guy like in a skill position such as Najee, and particularly the position that he plays, his agent is doing him wrong not to come out of this thing without a fully guaranteed contract. Plain and simple. Mm-hmm. Plain and simple. So how much the Steelers balk at that and how much, really, to me, I don't think there'll be much discussion when it comes to the offsets of the deal. I think the main focus of this whole deal is going to be how much of it's guaranteed. And I think Najee Harris's agent is doing him a huge disservice being the, 24th overall. That's kind of that cutoff line where, you kind of wonder about the guarantees and that agent should not look at anything that happens ahead of Najee at, say, 22 or 23, whenever that player gets signed at all. It should be, he should hold fast and hard to his expectations that the Steelers should fully guarantee the first 4 years of that deal. And to me, that'll make the biggest, that will impact highly how quickly or how not quickly Najee Harris signs his rookie deal. The rest of them should happen fairly quickly.
Mm-hmm. And you are adamant about the fully guaranteed given the nature of the position that Harris plays. I assume that's the more compelling reason to make that fully guaranteed.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Right. Because, the chances of him, you hope that it's not the case, but, running back in today's NFL, if you're first round running back, if you're not going after the fully guaranteed first 4 years of the deal, you're doing it wrong, I think.
Yeah, no, I'm with 100%. So we'll see how that plays out for sure. But he'll be signed at some point, and the days of the holdouts and the big tricky negotiations are long gone.
Right. Now this might push in, or it might not. The Steelers might say, "Hey, we get it. Here you go." But the Steelers usually like to push back a little bit on that kind of stuff. And once again, where he is, you're going to see fully guaranteed contracts of at least the first, I think, 21 or 22 players drafted, and I think that's been kind of the standard anyway for a while now. It's just how far does that line move down each year by year, and how closer can we get to the first 32 players, having basically all first round draft picks having fully guaranteed contracts, and where he's at that number 24 spot's usually that questionable line.
The most interesting part about the Steelers draft class might be the undrafted free agents. I know we had already reported on Shakur Brown's signing bonus of $25,000, a pretty large sum considering what the Steelers generally do. Dave, I know you have more information that I haven't even heard yet about the signing bonuses some of these guys got. So fire away.
Yeah, got some fresh information from Joel Corey while I was gone there. Donovan Steiner, the safety there, another $25,000 signing bonus. So him and Shakur Brown's are the big winners so far this year, because that's exactly what Shakur Brown got. Mark Gilbert, the other, really the other higher profile. We talk about really this year's undrafted class having 3 higher profile defensive backs, and quite honestly, it's surprising that the Steelers landed all 3 of them, right? That they did. Talking about Mark Gilbert got a $18 $15,000 signing bonus there. So Lamont Wade next on the list at $15,000, and wide receiver Isaiah McCoy out of Kent State, $9,000 signing bonus there. So I think that leaves us down to two guys that I'm waiting to find the undrafted free agents to find the signing bonuses on. But Steiner $25,000, Gilbert $18,000, Wade $15,000, and McCoy $9,000.
Yeah, that would be Rico Bussey and Calvin Bundage, the two guys we don't know yet. But look at the Steelers spending some money. I know the allotment was higher this year, but wow, that is a little out of character for this team. I know it's for most teams that's nothing. They're giving $100,000 in partial guarantees, but for Pittsburgh, $25K to a couple of those guys, and just overall, those are probably some of the largest bonuses they've ever handed out before.
Yeah, didn't we knew Bundage, right? Bundage was a 70.
Do we know Bundage?
I thought
you said there were two.
Wasn't it Bussey and
Who would be the other?
Was it Watson?
Oh, yeah, Jamar Watson. Maybe we did know Bundage's. What was Bundage's?
I think it was 7,500, if I'm not mistaken, or right around in
there.
It
probably was Jamar Watson out of Kentucky. My mistake. Yeah, you're right about that. But regardless, the guys we do know, to see Brown and Steiner that high, doesn't mean much when you get into camp. Just be evaluated on their play, but says they were a little more aggressive than usual in terms of trying to lock these guys down. Right.
I mean, when you look at guys like you would hope, or you would think, with the Steelers spending that kind of money on two guys like Steiner and Shakur Brown, hopefully one of those guys comes out of that as being able to stick on the 53.
Yeah, we shall see. I think Brown's got a really good path, just given the lack of slot depth for this team right now and his own experience there and his own kind of ball-hawking, aggressive mentality. A little like Mike Hilton. I won't say it's a one-to-one comparison, but there are some similarities there, I suppose. But, yeah, we'll see how those guys look in camp. All right, Dave, good deal. I think it's everything I wanted to discuss today. Any other bullet points, any other news stories that you wanted to touch on today?
No, I think we hit on the bulk of it. You tell me. I've been out of town.
Yeah, I think that's everything. And so we can get to some reader emails, Dave, and close out today's show.
All right, let's see what the not a lot in here. I don't think overall, since a few of them in here. We'll talk about here. Let's see from Janae. It looks like feedback on the draft round table that we did several weeks ago. Apologies for sending this so late. Forgot it was in my draft folder. Not to be read on the air, just feedback. Well, too late. but overall. Really just loved what we did during the draft round table there. Love the 2-hour length. Janae says, hearing from all the writers, need to do a better job of reminding which writer is which. Obviously these guys aren't on the show very much, so people have probably a little bit of time discerning who was who. Let's see. Thanks again. Look forward to Alex's training camp reports again. Boy, you and everybody else there. So Janae, thank you for that email. Most
Did
definitely.
You see I thought Rooney's comment was interesting. He said basically if fans aren't allowed, then the Steelers probably won't go themselves. So hopefully fans are allowed.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it makes sense, right? You know. So we'll most definitely see on that. Let's see here. We got one from Richard Jameson. Which members of the 2021 draft class do you think will develop into starters by 2023, discounting injuries? Well, I mean, obviously, you would hope your top three that Alex and I spent a lot of time talking on. You did something wrong if your top three aren't starters by 2021. So there's three of them right there. Who else of the draft class, do you think will develop into starters by 2023, discounting injuries, Alex?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think Buddy Johnson has starter potential. Not this year, obviously, but I think as early as next season, he could be competing for an opportunity. Obviously, the punter, Presley Harvin III, is kind of an interesting special case there. He could be the starter, obviously, out of the gate. We'll see what happens and see if he can find that consistency. I don't know if I see necessarily starters for any other, in terms of I can confidently project that or maybe believe that. I mean, Dan Moore could be, but kind of get the feeling that, I don't know. I just don't know exactly where I'm at on Dan Moore, I suppose. And then Norwood and Roche. I like Roche. Do I see starter potential? I think that's going to be a bit strong in Norwood. I don't get the feeling that he'll be a starter 2 years from now.
Really, Roche has the people in front of him more of an op score as anything.
That's true.
I mean, he would a rise of him becoming a starter would take the demise, I think, of someone else. And
that's a good point.
And obviously you hope that's not T.J. Watt. So that would leave, his rise would come as a result of Highsmith just not working out. So, I think that's the way you look at that. Norwood, I think anything that you get out of Norwood is just gravy, man. I mean, you talk about a 7th round draft pick, and really Roche for that matter too, but where he was drafted. Is it the worst sin ever if a guy like Percy Harvin does not Presley? There I go again. I'm gonna. How many times am I going to call him Percy Harvin? Presley Harvin. If Presley Harvin doesn't work out, is there a major sin involved here?
I mean, no, it's a 7th round pick, so the odds of any 7th round pick, contributing heavily are pretty low, and they failed on long snappers in the 6th round before, so this would not be the end of the world.
Richard, I think the answer to your question, I think this every year when it comes to draft classes, and especially the Steelers, your first three rounds. Obviously, last year was different because there's no first round pick, but your first 3 rounds of picks, the expectation should be that every player there should turn into a starter or highly contributing player, by the 3rd year. You would hope by the end of the 2nd season, to be quite honest with you. So I think when you look at the 2021 draft class specifically, it should be looked at least in my eyes, and I think I drove my point home pretty good earlier in the show, is that Najee Harris, Pat Freiermuth, and Kendrick Green, those 3, not only should they hit by 2023, they sure better hit by the start of their or midway through the 2021 season. And anything that you get outside of that, the guys that might develop into something, to me and that includes the undrafted players as well too, is just gravy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, at least by next year for Freiermuth and Kendrick Green in a latest case scenario, considering Ebron's going to be free agent. Also, to mention Isaiah Loudermilk, I don't see starter ceiling for him. I think at best he's kind of a warmly rotational backup, but I don't see starter ceiling for Isaiah Loudermilk.
Right, man. If he becomes a guy that you can get 200 quality snaps out a year, I mean, yeah, hooray,
Right, and I think that's possible because I think he'll be a consistent, steady run defender, but the athleticism, the pass rush ability, it's just not there for him.
All right, we got an interesting question here from Paul Brown. Kendrick Green and Big Ben. I know this is probably on a lot of people's minds ever since the numbers were announced officially this past week, the uniform numbers. Dave and Alex, I know this really isn't an issue that deserves too much fodder, but it's fun to think about. Zach Gentry came into the league originally scheduled to wear 83, the great Heath Miller and Ben's best friend on the team. We all know scheduled to wear number 83 of the great Heath Miller and Ben's best friend on the team. We all know Ben's well-documented relationship with Pouncey and arguably his best friend on the team since Miller. Would he ask Green to change his number 53 out of a sign of respect for Pouncey, or do you think Ben lets it go since he is essentially on his final year?
I mean, Green's already wearing it. It's already a story, so I feel like if Ben didn't want that, it would have probably been changed by now. It was interesting. Green said he didn't even ask Pouncey for the blessing. He just requested it. Didn't know if they were going to give it to him, but the team did, and he's running with it. That was his number in high school and in college. So I don't know, but my assumption is he'll be keeping 53.
What was the first thought that ran through your head when seeing that 53? And really, that kind of happened. I think we kind of got wind that might happen before the official word came down last week, right?
Yeah, it was kind of they gave that out quickly. But I did an interesting kind of historical study on the history of them giving out numbers. Jack Ham's number was given out the year after he retired. That happened with a couple other guys as well. So it's not unprecedented. So part of it is just there aren't a lot of numbers in that area to give. You can't give out 52. You can't give out 58. You don't give out 59 anymore. A lot of those other numbers are spoken for already. So there's just kind of a limiting in that to begin with. But, it was interesting.
When you look at what were the options there?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Yeah, you can't do Webby, Ham, Lambert.
I guess I don't know where. Where does 63 rank on that?
I don't have the roster pulled up right now, but obviously Green also wanted it because it was the number that he wore. It's not necessarily his approach of I want to take Pouncey's number. He just wanted to keep the number he's been wearing his whole football career.
Right.
So, how about Jamar Watson wearing 50 though? First player to wear 50 after Shazier. That was kind of surprised they gave that out that quickly.
Right. Now, look, obviously a lot of I guess the question at this point becomes, look, all these offensive linemen aren't going to make the 53. Will at a later date Ben put his foot down? It's gotten this far now, and it's not like we're dealing with a 5th round player here, even though 3rd round is just a couple. To me, it kind of feels like 53 set in stone, right?
Yeah, I think so. And if Kendrick Green goes, listen, Ben, I like you. You're going to be gone after this year. I'm going to hold on to 53. So I don't know. I think he's going to keep it. I
think he is too. It did raise my eyes a little bit, I mean, man, give us a season here,
Mm-hmm. Yep.
But look, there's only so many numbers to go around as well too, and that makes it a tough on top of it there. I get the email, Paul, and look, it did raise my eyes a little bit there, but at this point, I would expect Kendrick Green to keep 53, but he will. Ben Roethlisberger will remind him, I bet, many, many times that he's not close to being 53 yet.
Yeah, that number certainly comes with a lot of history in the Pittsburgh Steelers franchise.
Right. So I get it with the whole number thing and all like that, but on top of it, man, there's only so many numbers, only so many numbers to go around here. Let's see if I can find maybe another one here from Roland Saucier. David Alex, greetings and salutations from Buffalo, New York. I wanted to give Steelers Depot kudos for the fantastic draft coverage this season. Loved every bit of it. I read your articles on the Steelers 53-man roster, and it really brought to light some of our shortcomings, specifically depth at edge and defensive back. I made a list of, now this is a couple of days old here, made a list of free agents that are available for our needs. I'd like you to look at them and tell me who would fit, more importantly, who the Steelers might sign. Let's start with edge. Melvin Ingram, 32 years old. Justin Houston, 32. Olivia Vernon, 30. Trent Murphy, 30. Ryan Kerrigan, 33. And John Simon, 30. For the defensive backs, Brian Poole, Malik Hooker, Trey Boston, and Jeff Heath, Gayron Conley, and Brashad Breeland. Do you think any of these players are realistic? Kevin Colbert and company need to fill some holes and need players at these positions and not unknown projects. Peace and love, your buddy Roland Springer Saucier. Thoughts on that? Look, and I mentioned it's kind of old. Ryan Kerrigan, we already see what happened there. John Simon, I wrote about him, I think, was it last year at this time or the year before? It seemed like he's a name that always comes up as a potential guy. I don't think that's an awful suggestion right now.
No, I've mentioned Simon. I think we both have, as you said, for several years now. It just obviously hasn't happened. I thought him and of that list you gave of edge guys, I thought Trent Murphy and John Simon would be the best fits and the best financially. Fits for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Right.
It's got to be somebody willing to play for the minimum. Murphy, and it's got to be someone, even though they apparently went after Ryan Kerrigan at 30. Justin Houston, I think it would be a great story, but I mean, he's obviously not going to help you any on special teams or anything like that. And really Melvin Ingram, any guy like that you brought in, you would expect to come in and play a large amount of snaps. I think defensively, and then that would mean that would be some sort of a sign. I think that maybe a guy like Alex Highsmith needs a little bit more work.
And I just think financially, those guys are probably going to command a little bit more. I know they have their own concerns, injuries, age, etc. But if Kerrigan's getting $3.5 million, those guys are probably getting similar whenever they do sign. So I think that just from a financial aspect, probably prices them out of Pittsburgh's very limited range.
I think the guys that the best chance, maybe on those edge, would be John Simon.
I think Trent Murphy's similar too.
Okay, well, Murphy and Simon would be the two that I think at this point moving forward would have the best chance at being a member of the Steelers prior to week 1. What about defensive backs? I mean, Malik Hooker, he's coming off of something. What did he tear up?
Yeah, I forget if it was
it Achilles or what?
Achilles, yeah. And that's why Olivia Vernon, I didn't even consider him because he's coming off that torn Achilles off the edge. I think they're probably not going to sign anybody. They already signed Millette. They already got their guy. But of that list, I think Jeff Heath was someone I was interested in. I think he's been a good box guy, good leader, good special teams player. Only 30 years old, just turned 30. So I thought that was the name that made the most sense of the ones that were listed off.
Yeah, Malik Hooker tore his Achilles, and boy, that's what a brutal injury that is, especially for a defensive back, man. How many guys do you see be able to? I mean, I'm not saying it's impossible, but that's such a, especially
it's the toughest injury to come back from. That.
I mean, it really, especially when you're talking about a defensive back. I don't want to rule it out. I mean, you get to that year point, if he comes in and gets the physical and once again, willing to take the minimum, what do you have invested at that point, right?
Sure.
Oh man, that's you hate to see those guys go through those injuries. There now, I guess the positive about that is the Steelers, I think, know a lot about Malik Hooker. Obviously, Ohio State product. Kevin Colbert loves that pedigree, especially if he can get it. So I'm not going to rule out Malik Hooker, but I think it all depends on the rehab process and something like that would obviously, I think, would come closer to the start of the regular season, and it would have to be something along the lines of damn near at minimum or on a 1 or 2 year deal on top of. Brian Poole's an interesting name. Trey Boston's a guy that seems to come up every offseason. Gayron Conley, I'm not sure where that kid's head's at, and really is Bashaud Breeland still a free agent?
I do not know. I
guess he is. Yeah,
he's on the list there. He probably is. Yeah, he looks like he's still a free agent.
Of all those guys that he just listed there, I mean, I think a few of the defensive backs maybe stand a better chance than the edge guys as a whole. But once again, Roland, I mean, this team's going to add at least one or two more players. I'm very confident about that. And I think both those players are going to be on the defensive side of the ball. And I think one or two of those guys are going to end up on the 53-man roster. It's just how they work. It's just how it works.
Yeah, I think the take that you had the other day that really illustrated that year by year, I think explained that extremely well.
And there seems to be a fake tweet circulating now that from a fake Adam Schefter account. So be careful with it. The Steelers are signing veteran pass rusher Justin Houston to a 1-year deal. That's obviously a fake tweet.
Going to be a rough day. You got the Warren Sharp trying to make a mountain out of a molehill of Cam Hayward's comment on Najee Harris, toting the ball 30, 40 times a day. He's freaking out about it for some stupid reason. So going to be a day. Penn's game tonight. Going to be a day on Twitter, Dave.
Absolutely. Charles Munger, one more thing. Harris rookie year rushing total. I think we already hit this the other day. It's from 9 days ago. Yeah, Charles, we already hit on the rookie year total. So with that, I think it's a good time to wrap it up. Alex, closing in on the 2-hour mark. I'll let you off the hook here on my first show back. We'll be back talking more on. What's today? Tuesday, so that'd be Friday there. So in the meantime, you can follow me on Twitter at Steelers Depot. Follow Alex on Twitter at Alex_Kozora. Follow the show at Terrible Podcast. Email the show, theterriblepodcast@gmail.com. If you like what we do and want to donate to the cause, please go to SteelersDepot.com. Hit the donate button up right navigational bar. Also, if you like an ad-free version of SteelersDepot.com, go to SteelersDepot.com. Hit the ad-free button up right navigational bar for $25 for 1 calendar year. You can have an ad-free version of the site. It's pretty popular. People have been taking advantage as well there. So, oh boy, we're going to have a busy couple of days here, I think, trying to catch up on a lot of stuff. Still a lot of stuff to write about as well, too. So until Friday, we're not doing, there's no Monday night, or that would have been a Monday night last night. So that's past us there. So I think next Monday is the next YouTube Live, right?
Yeah, not this upcoming Monday will be the next live stream.
All right. In the meantime, as always, thanks for listening to the Terrible Podcast with Dave and Alex.